The massive doors of the Galactic Federation Council chamber hissed open with a sound that echoed across the vast hall. Ambassador Patricia Walsh stepped forward, her simple black uniform standing out against the ornate robes and biomechanical suits of the alien delegates. Behind her, Captain David Reynolds kept his hand near his sidearm, though he knew the primitive projectile weapon would be useless against the advanced shields, protecting every alien in the room. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering. Floating platforms arranged in concentric circles housed representatives from 47 different species, each platform adjusted for their unique atmospheric and gravitational requirements. At the center, a holographic display showed the current map of known space, with Earth appearing as a tiny blue dot on the very edge of civilized territory. War leader Thane of the Corven Empire rose from his platform, his massive frame towering over the other delegates. His species had evolved from predators, and their shark-like features still carried the menace of their ancient ancestors. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a civilization that had conquered 12-star systems through superior military might. "The humans request full membership in our federation," Thane announced, his words dripping with amusement. They arrive in a single vessel, constructed from primitive metals and powered by controlled explosions. Their weapons fire solid projectiles, using chemical propellants, technology we abandoned 3,000 years ago. Murmurs of laughter rippled through the chamber. Admiral Kix of the Epsilon Collective activated his translation device, the mechanical voice carrying none of the contempt that surely filled his thoughts. "Our preliminary scans indicate their homeworld possesses basic industrial capacity. They have achieved faster-than-light travel through crude manipulation of space-time, but their understanding of quantum mechanics remains elementary." Patricia felt her jaw tighten, but she maintained her diplomatic composure. Earth had prepared for this moment for decades, ever since their first detection of alien signals. The brightest minds of humanity had worked tirelessly to develop the technology that brought them to this chamber. And now these beings dismissed their achievements as the crude efforts of primitives. "Honored delegates," Patricia began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "Humanity may be new to galactic civilization, but we bring unique perspectives and capabilities. Our species has survived countless challenges on our homeworld, developing technologies and strategies that could benefit all members of the Federation." Elder Zen of the Theta Hegemony slowly rotated his platform to face the human delegation. His ancient species had achieved immortality through technological enhancement, their consciousness transferred between mechanical bodies for over 50,000 years. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of millennia. "Young species," Elder Zen intoned, "you mistake survival for strength. Your world has known only internal conflicts between members of your own species. The challenges of galactic civilization require capabilities far beyond your current development. We have faced threats that would extinguish your entire civilization in moments." Captain Reynolds stepped forward, unable to contain his response. "With respect, Elder Zen, humanity has faced extinction-level events multiple times throughout our history. We've survived asteroid impacts, ice ages, plagues, and global wars. Each time we've emerged stronger and more united." The chamber fell silent for a moment before erupting in what could only be described as alien laughter. The sounds were disturbing to human ears, ranging from the chittering of insectoid species to the harmonic resonances of energy beings. War leader Thane's rumbling chuckle dominated the cacophony. "Asteroids and ice ages," Thane repeated, his massive head shaking in apparent disbelief. "Child, we have witnessed the death of stars. Our weapons can crack planets like eggs. Your entire military could not challenge a single one of our patrol vessels." Admiral Kix activated the chamber's holographic display, showing a recording of recent Epsilon military exercises. The images showed sleek vessels firing beams of coherent energy that instantly vaporized massive asteroids. Shields of pure force deflected similar attacks without any visible effect. The demonstration was clearly intended to humble the human delegation. "Your chemical rockets and metal bullets," Admiral Kix stated flatly, represent technology that our ancestors used before achieving spaceflight. No species in recorded galactic history has attempted to join the Federation with such primitive weaponry. Patricia exchanged a quick glance with Captain Reynolds. They had expected this reception, but experiencing it firsthand was more demoralizing than their worst projections. The sheer scale of the technology gap seemed insurmountable, and yet humanity had no choice but to persist. "We understand our technology may seem primitive by your standards," Patricia replied carefully, "but humanity has always excelled at adapting and improving. Given time and access to galactic knowledge, we could contribute significantly to the Federation's goals." War Leader Thane rose again, his massive form casting a shadow over the human delegation. "Time is a luxury we cannot afford to waste on species that lack the basic capabilities for galactic citizenship. However, we are not without mercy. We offer humanity observer status, allowing you to witness our proceedings and learn from your betters." The offer was clearly meant as a generous gesture, but Patricia felt the sting of condescension in every word. Observer status meant humanity would have no voice in galactic affairs, no vote in Federation decisions, and no access to the advanced technologies that could elevate their civilization. "We accept observer status," Patricia said finally, knowing that any other response would result in immediate expulsion from the chamber, "but we hope to prove worthy of full membership in the future." Elder Zen's mechanical form emitted a sound that might have been a sigh. "Young species, you fail to understand the gulf between your capabilities and ours. Full membership requires military strength sufficient to defend Federation territory, technological advancement capable of contributing to our collective knowledge, and cultural sophistication that enables meaningful participation in galactic governance. Humanity possesses none of these prerequisites." The session continued for several more hours, with various delegates offering their assessments of humanity's potential. The consensus was clear: Earth was too weak, too primitive, and too isolated to ever become a meaningful member of galactic civilization. The best humanity could hope for was to quietly observe and perhaps, over several thousand years, develop the basic capabilities necessary for consideration. As the session concluded, Captain Reynolds found himself studying the alien delegates with new eyes. Their confidence was absolute, their dismissal of humanity complete. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia, their technological superiority unquestioned. But Reynolds noticed something the aliens seemed to have missed in their assessment. Every species in the chamber had achieved peace through overwhelming technological advantage. None had needed to fight for their survival in generations. Walking back to their shuttle, Patricia voiced the thought that had been growing in both their minds. "They think we're weak because we haven't forgotten how to fight." Captain Reynolds nodded grimly as they departed the Federation capital. "They're about to learn the difference between being technologically advanced and being truly dangerous." 3 months after the humiliating session at the Federation Council, Earth's long-range sensors detected the arrival of 50 massive vessels at the edge of the solar system. The ships were unlike anything in human records, their sleek forms crackling with energy that bent space around them. Each vessel was easily 3 times the size of Earth's most advanced warships, and their formation spoke of military precision that had been perfected over millennia. President Maria Santos stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by her top military advisors and scientists. The main display showed the alien fleet maintaining position beyond Neptune's orbit, their energy signatures painting an ominous picture of overwhelming superiority. General Roberts, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, spoke in clipped military tones that barely concealed his worry. "Ma'am, our analysis indicates these are Corven vessels. Their energy output alone suggests they could sterilize our entire planet from their current position. We've attempted communication, but they're not responding to any of our frequencies." Dr. Amanda Foster, Earth's leading xenobiologist, studied the tactical display with growing concern. "The Corven Empire has a reputation for conquest through intimidation. Their standard procedure is to arrive with overwhelming force and demand immediate surrender. Species that comply are usually incorporated into their empire with minimal casualties. President Santos nodded grimly. And species that don't comply? Complete annihilation, Dr. Foster replied quietly. The Corvans don't believe in extended warfare. They consider it a waste of resources to fight battles they can avoid through superior firepower. The communication console suddenly came alive with an incoming transmission. The main screen flickered and resolved into the imposing figure of War Commander Vrak, his scarred features and battle-worn armor speaking of countless victories. When he spoke, his voice carried the absolute authority of a species that had never known defeat. Primitive humans of the third planet, Vrak began, his translator rendering his words in perfect English. I am War Commander Vrak of the Corven, 7th Fleet. Your species has been selected for incorporation into the Corven Empire. You have achieved basic space travel, which qualifies you for servant status within our civilization. General Roberts leaned forward, his military instincts screaming at the casual arrogance in the alien's voice. This is General Roberts of the United Earth Defense Forces. You have entered our solar system without permission. State your intentions. Vrak's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. Your solar system now belongs to the Corven Empire. Your intentions are irrelevant. You will surrender your government, your military forces, and your industrial capacity to Corven control. In return, your species will be granted the privilege of serving the Empire in whatever capacity we deem appropriate. President Santos stepped forward, her diplomatic training warring with her growing anger. War Commander Vrak, Earth is a sovereign world and a member of the Galactic Federation. Any hostile action against us would violate numerous galactic treaties. Observer member, Vrak corrected, his tone dismissive. Your status grants, protection under Federation law. The Corven Empire has reviewed your species' capabilities and determined that conquest will require minimal resources. Your primitive weapons and crude technology pose no threat to our forces. The transmission continued for several minutes, with Vrak outlining the terms of Earth's surrender in mechanical detail. Human governments would be dissolved, their military forces disbanded, and their population relocated to serve Corven industrial needs. The casual efficiency with which he described the enslavement of 4 billion humans was perhaps more terrifying than any direct threat. You have 72 hours to comply, Vrak concluded. Failure to surrender will result in the complete sterilization of your planet. We have no desire to waste time on prolonged resistance. The transmission ended, leaving the Situation Room in stunned silence. President Santos found herself staring at the tactical display, where 50 alien warships waited with the patience of predators certain of their prey. The weight of humanity's survival rested on her shoulders, and every military assessment suggested that resistance was suicide? Options? She asked quietly. General Roberts cleared his throat. Ma'am, our entire space fleet consists of 47 vessels, and that includes cargo ships and research platforms. Our most advanced weapons are nuclear missiles and railgun systems. Intelligence suggests their shields could deflect our entire arsenal without significant damage. Dr. Foster pulled up detailed scans of the Corven fleet. Their energy signatures indicate some form of adaptive shielding that adjusts to incoming threats. Plasma weapons, laser arrays, and particle beams all appear to be standard armaments. Each of their vessels carries more firepower than our entire planetary defense grid. President Santos studied the faces around her, seeing the same grim calculation in every expression. Earth's military leaders were not cowards, but they were also not fools. The mathematics of the situation were stark. Humanity faced extinction at the hands of a superior alien force that viewed them as nothing more than a minor inconvenience. What about evacuation? She asked. Could we relocate our population to other systems? Impossible, General Roberts replied. We have exactly 4 vessels capable of interstellar travel, and they can carry maybe 1,000 people each. Even if we had years to prepare, we couldn't save more than a fraction of our population. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Humanity faced its greatest crisis since the species first looked up at the stars, And every traditional option led to the same conclusion: extinction or enslavement. Finally, President Santos spoke the words that would change the course of galactic history. Prepare a response to War Commander Vrak. Tell him that Earth declines his offer and demands the immediate withdrawal of all Corven forces from our solar system. The silence that followed was deafening. General Roberts was the first to recover. His voice: "Ma'am, with respect, that's essentially a declaration of war against a vastly superior enemy. They could wipe out our entire civilization." "Yes," President Santos replied calmly, "they could. But they expect us to surrender without a fight because they believe we're too weak to resist. Maybe it's time they learn that being weak and being helpless are two very different things." The transmission was sent 12 hours later, delivered by Captain Reynolds aboard the UES Defiance. The human vessel approached the Corven fleet under a flag of truce, its primitive appearance almost comical compared to the alien warships surrounding it. When Captain Reynolds delivered Earth's response, War Commander Vrak's reaction was exactly what humanity had expected. "You refuse?" Vrak's voice carried disbelief that quickly shifted to cold fury. "Your species chooses extinction over the honor of serving the Empire?" "Our species chooses freedom," Captain Reynolds replied steadily. "We suggest you reconsider your position." Vrak's laughter was a sound like grinding metal. "Very well. You have chosen your fate. We will provide a demonstration of Corven power. And then you will have one final opportunity to surrender before we sterilize your miserable planet." The demonstration came 6 hours later. 3 Corven vessels approached Earth's orbital infrastructure, their weapons charging with energy that made the surrounding space shimmer. Earth's orbital stations and satellite networks, built over decades of human ingenuity and sacrifice, were reduced to glowing debris in minutes. The attack was surgical, precise, and utterly devastating. 3,000 humans died in the orbital bombardment, their lives snuffed out to make a point about Corven's superiority. The message was clear: Earth's defenses were meaningless against alien technology, and continued resistance would only result in greater suffering. But instead of the expected surrender, Earth's response surprised the entire galaxy. President Santos appeared on every communication channel, her voice carrying to every corner of human space and beyond. Her words were simple, direct, and would be remembered for generations. "The Corven Empire has attacked Earth and murdered our people. As of this moment, humanity considers itself at war with the Corven Empire and any who support them. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We will fight until victory or extinction." War Commander Vrak received the transmission aboard his flagship, his scarred features twisting with contempt. "Primitives," he muttered to his officers. "They still believe their crude weapons can challenge Corven might. We will withdraw and allow them time to contemplate their folly. When we return, they will beg for the mercy of slavery." The Corven fleet departed the solar system, confident that Earth's declaration of war was nothing more than the desperate posturing of a doomed species. They had faced similar defiance before, and it always ended the same way, with the complete subjugation of inferior civilizations. What they failed to understand was that humanity's declaration of war was not an act of desperation, but a statement of intent. Earth had just announced to the galaxy that they would rather die fighting than live in chains, and that announcement would change everything. The factory complex stretched across the entire Arizona desert, its massive structures hidden beneath advanced camouflage that made them appear as nothing more than sand dunes and rock formations. Deep underground, automated assembly lines that had been disguised as consumer electronics facilities for decades suddenly shifted into their true purpose. The machines that had once produced tablets and smartphones now churned out targeting systems and weapon components with mechanical precision. Admiral David Reynolds, recently promoted from his role as captain, stood in the command center of what had once been called the Phoenix Research Institute. Around him, holographic displays showed the true scope of Earth's military preparations, projects that had been classified at levels so secret that even most world leaders had been unaware of their existence. "How long have we been preparing for this?" Admiral Reynolds asked, his voice barely concealing his amazement. Dr. Sarah Chun, the project's lead scientist, manipulated the holographic controls to show construction timelines spanning back nearly 50 years. The Prometheus initiative began in 1975, shortly after we first detected artificial signals from outside the solar system. The assumption was that any alien civilization capable of interstellar communication would be technologically superior. To us, the displays showed facilities hidden across Earth and throughout the solar system. Asteroid mining operations that appeared to be commercial ventures were actually military supply depots. Research stations on the outer planets housed weapons testing facilities that had been operating in secret for decades. Most shocking of all, the space elevator that had been presented as humanity's greatest peacetime achievement was actually a massive logistical system for military deployment. The beauty of the deception, Dr. Chun continued, was that we never lied about our capabilities. We simply allowed the Federation to make assumptions based on what they could observe. They saw our chemical rockets and metal bullets, but they never bothered to ask about our industrial capacity or our rate of technological advancement. Admiral Reynolds studied the production figures scrolling across the displays. These numbers can't be accurate? You're saying we can produce 200 warships per month? Conservative estimate, Dr. Chun replied. Our manufacturing systems were designed for exponential scaling. Every facility can replicate itself using raw materials from asteroid mining operations. The Corvens gave us exactly what we needed. Time to activate our full production capacity. The first test of humanity's true capabilities came 3 weeks later. War Commander Vrak returned to the solar system with his full fleet, expecting to find a broken and desperate civilization ready to surrender. Instead, his sensors detected something that defied every assumption about human technology. Impossible, Vrak muttered, studying the readings from his flagship's advanced sensors. They show over 300 vessels in formation near their homeworld. Our intelligence indicated they possessed fewer than 50 ships total. His tactical officer, a veteran of dozens of conquest campaigns, rechecked the sensor data with growing confusion. War Commander, the energy signatures are consistent with human technology, but the scale is unprecedented. These vessels appear to be newly constructed, but their manufacturing time frame would require industrial capacity far beyond what we observed. Vrak studied the tactical display, his predatory instincts warning him that something fundamental had changed. What types of vessels are we detecting? Unknown configurations, the tactical officer replied. They appear to be purpose-built for combat, but their weapon systems are unlike anything in our databases. No energy signatures consistent with plasma or laser arrays. Instead, we're detecting massive kinetic launch systems and some form of exotic matter manipulation. The human fleet moved with a coordination that spoke of advanced tactical planning and unified command structure. Admiral Reynolds, now commanding the operation from the UES Defiance, watched the Corven formation with satisfaction. The aliens were maintaining their traditional battle formation, designed to maximize the effectiveness of their energy weapons while protecting their command vessels. All units, this is Admiral Reynolds, he broadcast to the human fleet. Remember, their shields are designed to deflect energy weapons. Our kinetic systems should pass through their defenses like they don't exist. Target their larger vessels first, and remember that we've trained for this scenario for decades. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for generations. The Corven fleet, confident in their technological superiority, advanced in their standard formation. Their energy shields flickered to life, creating barriers that could deflect any known weapon in the galaxy. Their plasma cannons began charging, preparing to deliver the devastating first strike that had shattered countless civilizations, but humanity's weapons were not like anything the galaxy had seen before. The kinetic projectiles launched by human railgun systems traveled at significant fractions of light speed, their mass accelerated by magnetic fields that had been perfected in secret for decades. The exotic matter warheads, developed from theoretical physics that the Federation had dismissed as primitive, created localized space-time distortions that no shield could deflect. The first salvo from the human fleet struck the Corven formation with devastating effect. Energy shields that had never failed in millennia of warfare simply ignored the incoming kinetic projectiles. Weapons that relied on mass and velocity rather than energy passed through the barriers as if they didn't exist, striking hull plates with the force of small asteroids. "Shields are ineffective," Vrak's tactical officer reported, his voice rising with panic. "Their weapons are passing through our defensive barriers without any reduction in impact force." Vrak watched in horror as 3 of his heavy cruisers were torn apart by weapons that should have been incapable of penetrating their defenses. "Return fire! All vessels, maximum plasma discharge!" The Corven response was immediate and devastating. Beams of coherent energy lanced across space, each one capable of vaporizing a small moon. The plasma cannons that had reduced planets too. Slag fired in coordinated volleys that should have annihilated the human fleet in seconds. Instead, the human vessels danced between the energy beams with an agility that seemed impossible for ships of their size. Their formations scattered and reformed with tactical precision, each vessel following predetermined patterns that had been practiced countless times in hidden training facilities. "They're not fighting like primitives," Vrak realized, his tactical experience finally overcoming his species' arrogance. "This is coordinated fleet warfare at an advanced level. They've been planning for this battle." Admiral Reynolds watched the Corven fleet's confusion with grim satisfaction. "All units, execute pattern Delta 7. Target their command vessels and propulsion systems. We want survivors for intelligence purposes." The second wave of human attacks focused on crippling rather than destroying the Corven fleet. Kinetic projectiles targeted engine systems and weapon arrays, while exotic matter warheads disabled communication networks and sensor arrays. The aliens found themselves fighting blind and deaf, their technological superiority rendered meaningless by weapons they didn't understand. War Commander Vrak's flagship shuddered under repeated impacts, its hull plates buckling under stresses they had never been designed to withstand. "Tactical retreat," he ordered, his voice carrying the bitter taste of defeat. "All vessels, emergency jump to hyperspace!" The Corven fleet that had arrived with such confidence fled the solar system in disorder, leaving behind the wreckage of 27 vessels and the bodies of thousands of alien warriors. The survivors carried with them a new understanding of humanity's true nature, one that would send shockwaves throughout the galaxy. As the last Corven vessel disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Reynolds opened a communication channel to Earth. "Mr. President, the first phase is complete. The Corvens have been defeated and are in full retreat." President Santos' voice carried a mixture of relief and grim determination. "Casualties?" "Minimal," Admiral Reynolds replied. "We lost 3 vessels with all hands, but the enemy casualties were catastrophic. They'll think twice before underestimating us again." But even as Earth celebrated its first victory against an alien empire, Admiral Reynolds knew that the real war was just beginning. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined, and that discovery would bring enemies that made the Corven Empire look like a minor threat, a message that War Commander Vrak carried back to his home system was simple and terrifying. Humanity had been hiding their true capabilities from the very beginning, and they were not the primitive species the galaxy had assumed. They were something far more dangerous, something that the established order had never encountered before. They were a species that had learned to fight for survival, and they were very good at it. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council convened in unprecedented secrecy aboard the mobile fortress Eternal Vigilance, hidden in the depths of interstellar space. Representatives from every major species gathered in the armored conference chamber, their usual diplomatic protocols abandoned in favor of crisis management. The holographic displays showed tactical analyses that had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. Elder Zen of the Theta hegemony stood at the center of the chamber, his ancient mechanical form radiating an authority that had guided galactic politics for 50,000 years. The Corven defeat at Sol 3 represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power. War Commander Vrak's surviving forces report that human weapons technology is unlike anything in our databases. Admiral Kix of the Epsilon Collective activated his presentation, showing detailed scans of the battlefield debris. Our analysis of the wreckage confirms that human kinetic weapons operate on principles we dismissed as inefficient. Their projectiles achieve velocities that our shields cannot deflect because they were designed to counter energy-based attacks. War Leader Thane, his massive form still bearing the scars of countless battles, studied the tactical data with the eye of a seasoned warrior. This is not mere technological advancement. The humans fought with coordination and tactical sophistication that suggests extensive military preparation. They have been planning for galactic warfare while we assumed they were struggling with basic spaceflight. Representative Kala of the Hegemony spoke from her crystalline form, her voice carrying the harmonic resonances of her energy-based species. The implications extend beyond military capability. If humanity has been concealing their true strength, what other assumptions about member species might be incorrect? The chamber fell silent as the delegates contemplated the terrifying possibility that their entire understanding of galactic civilization might be flawed. For millennia, the Federation had operated under the assumption that technological advancement led naturally to peaceful coexistence. Species that achieved interstellar travel were expected to abandon warfare in favor of diplomacy and mutual cooperation. Humanity had just demonstrated that this assumption was catastrophically wrong. "We face a choice," Elder Zen continued, his mechanical voice carrying the weight of eons. "We can attempt to integrate humanity into the existing order, despite their demonstrated military capabilities, or we can recognize them as an existential threat to galactic stability." The debate that followed would determine the fate of two civilizations. Admiral Kix argued for immediate military action, citing the danger of allowing human military technology to spread to other species. War Leader Thane, surprisingly, advocated for negotiation, his warrior's instincts recognizing that humanity's tactical capabilities might be valuable allies rather than enemies, but it was Representative Kala who voiced the fear that ultimately drove the Council's decision. If we allow humanity to continue their expansion, how long before other species begin to question our authority? How long before they realize that technological superiority does not guarantee political dominance? The vote was unanimous. Humanity represented a threat to the established galactic order and must be eliminated before their influence could destabilize the Federation. The Council authorized the deployment of the Grand Alliance, a military coalition that would combine the technological capabilities of every major species into a force capable of crushing any resistance. The mobilization that followed was unprecedented in galactic history. The Epsilon Collective contributed their most advanced warships, vessels that manipulated space-time itself as a weapon. The Theta Hegemony deployed reality warping technologies that could alter the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. 6 minor species added their own specialized capabilities, creating a combined fleet that represented the pinnacle of galactic military might. Admiral Kix assumed command of the Grand Alliance aboard the flagship Inevitable Conclusion, a vessel that incorporated technologies from every member species. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering, its hull composed of exotic matter that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its weapon systems could manipulate quantum fields, temporal flow, and gravitational constants with precision that bordered on the supernatural. 3,000 vessels, Admiral Kix reported to the assembled commanders. The largest military force in recorded galactic history. Our target is not merely the defeat of human forces, but the complete sterilization of their industrial capacity, and the elimination of their ability to wage interstellar warfare. The Grand Alliance moved toward the Sol system with the confidence of a civilization that had never known defeat. Their ships represented technologies that had been perfected over millions of years, weapons that had ended conflicts before they could begin, and shields that had never been penetrated by enemy fire, but humanity had not been idle during the months of galactic preparation. Admiral Reynolds stood in the command center of the orbital fortress New Geneva, watching the final preparations for what military historians would later call the most audacious defensive strategy in the history of warfare. "Final count?" he asked. His operations officer. 5,000 vessels in the primary fleet, came the reply. Another 15,000 automated defense platforms and approximately 30,000 fighter-class units. Industrial capacity is now at 112% of theoretical maximum. Admiral Reynolds nodded, studying the holographic display that showed the true scope of humanity's military buildup. The automated factories had been working around the clock, producing vessels at a rate that would have been impossible for any organic workforce. The key to human military doctrine wasn't individual technological superiority, but the ability to overwhelm enemy forces through sheer numbers and coordinated tactics. "What about the special projects?" he asked quietly. Doctor Chun activated a secured display showing developments that had been classified beyond even the highest levels of government. "The Prometheus weapons are ready for deployment. The Zeus platforms have been positioned throughout the system, and the Aurora project is standing by for activation." The special projects represented humanity's most desperate gambit. If the Grand Alliance's technological superiority proved insurmountable, Earth had prepared weapons that would ensure the cost of victory would be too high for any rational enemy to accept. The battle for the Sol system began at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, where advanced elements of the Grand Alliance encountered the first of humanity's defensive lines. The aliens expected to face the same kinetic weapons that had defeated the Corven fleet, but instead found themselves confronting something entirely different. The human vessels had been redesigned, based on intelligence gathered from the Corven battle. Their hull configurations were optimized for maximum maneuverability, their weapon systems adapted to counter the specific technologies deployed by each alien species. Most importantly, their tactical doctrine had evolved to exploit the weaknesses that humanity had identified in galactic military thinking. "They're not fighting like the Corvens described," Admiral Kix observed as his fleet advanced through the outer system. "These formations are designed to counter our specific weapon systems. They've analyzed our capabilities and developed countermeasures." The first major engagement occurred near Neptune, where a combined force of Epsilon and Theta vessels encountered Admiral Reynolds' advance fleet. The alien ships opened fire with weapons that should have ended the battle in minutes, but the humans scattered into formations that minimized the effectiveness of area effect weapons while maximizing their own firepower concentration. "Reality distortion fields are ineffective," reported the Theta commander. "Human vessels are equipped with some form of quantum stabilization technology. Our weapons cannot alter local spacetime in their vicinity." Admiral Kix watched in growing alarm as his technologically superior forces were systematically outmaneuvered by human tactics. "How are they negating our technological advantages?" The answer came from an unexpected source, Dr. Foster, now serving as Earth's chief intelligence officer, had been studying captured alien technology for months. Her analysis had revealed a fundamental flaw in galactic military thinking. Advanced civilizations had become so dependent on their technological superiority that they had forgotten how to adapt to unexpected threats. "They're fighting the last war," she explained to Admiral Reynolds during a brief communication window. "Their tactics haven't evolved in thousands of years because they've never faced an enemy that could challenge their technology. They assume that superior weapons guarantee victory, but they've never learned to cope with adaptive strategy." The battle raged for 6 days, with the Grand Alliance slowly pushing deeper into the Sol system despite mounting casualties. The humans fought with a desperation that bordered on madness, throwing wave after wave of vessels against the advancing alien fleet. But gradually, the technological superiority of the Grand Alliance began to tell. Admiral Reynolds watched the tactical display with growing concern. Despite their tactical advantages, humanity was facing the combined might of an entire galactic civilization. The numbers were simply too overwhelming to overcome through strategy alone. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving transmission from Earth. President Santos is requesting authorization for the Aurora project. Admiral Reynolds closed his eyes, knowing that the decision he was about to make would change the nature of warfare forever. Tell the President that Aurora is authorized. God help us all. The Aurora project represented humanity's ultimate weapon, a technology so dangerous that even Earth's leaders had hoped never to use it. Deep in the Sol system, hidden installations began to activate, their systems drawing power from the sun itself. The Grand Alliance was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their weapons or their tactics. It was their willingness to pay any price for survival, even if that price threatened the very fabric of space-time itself. The Aurora project activated with a sound that seemed to come from the very fabric of space itself. Hidden installations throughout the Sol system began channeling energy directly from the sun, their collectors drawing power at levels that should have been impossible for any known technology. The energy flowed through conduits that had been built into the asteroid belt itself, creating a network that turned the entire solar system into a single massive weapon. Admiral Kix watched his sensor displays with growing horror. As space around, the Grand Alliance fleet began to behave in ways that violated every known law of physics. What are they doing? He demanded, his mechanical voice carrying unprecedented fear. The answer came from his science officer, a Theta hegemony member whose consciousness had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. They're manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. The humans have weaponized stellar energy on a scale that exceeds anything in galactic records. If they continue this process, they could destabilize local spacetime. The Grand Alliance fleet found itself trapped in a bubble of altered physics, where their advanced technologies began to malfunction in unpredictable ways. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously were forced back into normal space. Weapons that manipulated quantum fields discharged randomly, often targeting their own vessels. Most terrifying of all, the reality-warping technologies that had made the Theta hegemony invincible for millennia simply stopped working. Admiral Reynolds watched the chaos from his command center, his expression grim despite the tactical advantage. Status report on Aurora containment? Dr. Chen studied readings that pushed her instruments to their absolute limits. We have approximately 6 hours before the field destabilization becomes irreversible. If we don't shut down the system by then, the effect will spread beyond the solar system and could potentially affect neighboring star systems. The Aurora project was humanity's ultimate gambit, a weapon so powerful that using it risked destroying everything they were trying to protect. But it had achieved its purpose. The Grand Alliance fleet was neutralized, their technological superiority rendered meaningless by humanity's willingness to threaten the very structure of reality. Open a channel to the alien fleet, Admiral Reynolds ordered. It's time to end this war. The transmission that followed would be remembered as the moment when humanity claimed its place as the dominant military power in the galaxy. Admiral Reynolds appeared on the screens of every vessel in the Grand Alliance, his image somehow reaching them despite the space-time distortions surrounding their fleet. Admiral Kix, Reynolds began, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had just demonstrated their ability to destroy entire solar systems. You came here to eliminate humanity as a threat to galactic stability? Instead, you've learned that we are exactly the threat you feared we might become. Admiral Kix struggled to maintain his composure as his flagship shuddered under the effects of the Aurora field. What do you want? Surrender? Reynolds replied simply. Immediate and unconditional. Your fleets will stand down, your governments will acknowledge Earth as an equal member of the galactic community, and the Federation will be restructured to prevent this kind of aggressive action in the future. The silence that followed was broken by Elder Zen's mechanical voice. And if we refuse? Admiral Reynolds gestured to the chaos surrounding the alien fleet. Then we continue this demonstration until your ships are reduced to atomic particles. The Aurora project can be sustained for approximately 6 hours before it begins to affect neighboring star systems. After that, we shut it down and retreat to the galactic rim, where we'll spend the next few centuries developing even more destructive weapons. The threat was clear. Humanity was offering the galaxy a choice between peaceful coexistence and a war that would devastate entire regions of space. The aliens had assumed they could eliminate the human threat through superior technology, but instead found themselves facing a species willing to use weapons too dangerous for any rational civilization to deploy. "You're insane," Admiral Kix whispered. "You would risk destroying your own solar system to defeat us?" "We would risk destroying the entire galaxy to remain free," Reynolds replied. "That's the difference between your species and ours. You've forgotten that some things are worth dying for." The surrender came 3 hours later, transmitted simultaneously by all commanders of the Grand Alliance. The most powerful military force in galactic history had been defeated not by superior technology, but by humanity's willingness to pay any price for victory. The Aurora project shut down gradually, its energy networks powering down with carefully controlled precision. The space-time distortions faded, allowing the alien fleet to regain control of their vessels. But the damage to galactic civilizations' confidence was irreversible. President Santos arrived at the Federation capital aboard a fleet of 500 human warships. Her diplomatic mission now backed by undeniable military supremacy. The same aliens who had dismissed humanity as primitive. Observers now found themselves negotiating with the galaxy's dominant military power. The treaty that followed restructured the Galactic Federation along principles that humanity considered essential: mutual respect, defensive cooperation, and the abolition of military conquest as a tool of diplomacy. Species that had ruled through technological intimidation for millennia found themselves subject to laws enforced by human military might. War leader Thane, who had once mocked humanity's primitive weapons, now served as Earth's liaison to the Corven territories. His massive frame bore new scars from the battles that had followed the Federation's restructuring, conflicts where human tactics had consistently triumphed over alien technology. "I understand now," Thane admitted during a private conversation with Admiral Reynolds. "We mistook advancement for strength. Your species never forgot that technology without the will to use it is meaningless." Admiral Reynolds nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed human fleets deployed throughout the galaxy. "The Federation made the same mistake that every dominant power in history has made. You assumed that your superiority was permanent, and your dominance was natural. You forgot that being advanced doesn't make you invincible." The new galactic order that emerged from humanity's victory was unlike anything in recorded history. Instead of rule through technological superiority, the Federation now operated under principles of mutual defense and cooperative advancement. Species that had spent millennia in isolation found themselves working together on projects that benefited all members. But perhaps the most significant change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that technological advancement without the wisdom to use it responsibly was a path to stagnation. Humanity's primitive nature, their willingness to fight for their beliefs and adapt to any threat, had proven to be exactly what galactic civilization needed to remain vital. The final scene of this new chapter in galactic history took place in the same council chamber where humanity had first been dismissed as too weak to matter. Ambassador Walsh, now serving as Earth's representative to the Reformed Federation, watched as delegates from dozens of species worked together on challenges that had seemed insurmountable under the old order. Elder Zen approached her platform, his ancient mechanical form moving with uncharacteristic humility. "Ambassador Walsh, I owe your species an apology. We assumed that because you had not abandoned warfare, you were less civilized than ourselves. We failed to understand that some conflicts cannot be resolved through peaceful means." Ambassador Walsh smiled, remembering the dismissive arrogance with which these same beings had treated humanity just months earlier. Elder Zen, perhaps. The real lesson here is that being civilized doesn't mean being weak. Sometimes the most civilized thing you can do is stand up to bullies. The holographic display at the center of the chamber now showed a very different map of known space. Earth was no longer a tiny blue dot on the periphery of civilization, but the center of a new network of alliances and cooperative agreements. Human fleets patrolled the spaceways, ensuring that no species could dominate others through technological intimidation. The galaxy had learned, perhaps too late, that underestimating humanity was the most dangerous mistake any civilization could make. The species they had dismissed as too primitive to matter had become the guardians of galactic freedom, their weakness transformed into the strength that held a diverse civilization together. In the end, the greatest victory was not military, but philosophical. Humanity had proven that true strength came not from superior technology, but from the willingness to fight for principles that mattered. The galaxy was a better place because Earth had been strong enough to defend its beliefs, even against impossible odds. The weak had inherited the stars, and they had made them stronger for everyone.